Good day, this is Peter Lucas and we are doing a major activity covering knowledge from TAEASS401B, TAEASS402B, TAEASS403B and TAEDEL301A. This is part C of TAEASS403B and it covers validation. Why do we have validation processes? Let's start. The date today is the 26th of the 6th, 2014. And the people that basically took part in the validation process was Peter Lucas, myself, assessor and trainer, John Matthew, assessor and trainer colleague, Bradley Carr, senior assessor and also head of the faculty, and Jamie Murdoch, who is an external industry expert. The different validations processes that we get is one is a validation meeting, and this is what we had, benchmarking, peer review of assessment methods and instruments, using the external and internal processes, using external and internal assessment panels, developing a knowledge base of assessment, using a trial and pilot methods, assessments by colleagues or other industry experts, learner feedback, obtain advice from other independent assessor, comparing results with other training providers in a similar industry, and this is common practice, project managers or experienced assessors providing input and recommendation to the process. What will we be assessing? We will be assessing the method used for the assessment, the instruments used for the assessment, the evidence gathered for the assessment, and then also the decision made by the assessor during the assessment process. All of these will have an effect on the new procedure or policy and processes that's in place. Other reasons for doing a validation is to evaluate the quality of the assessment instrument that has been designed by the assessor, to provide evidence to the required personnel for internal and external audits. RTOs do get audited, to demonstrate compliance with the NVR and also with the Australian qualification framework, to make the assessment as valid as possible to the learners, for best practice and continuous improvement in order to maintain their professional development. Trainers can share information and learn from each other. To determine if the same results are gained from trainers and assessors using the same instruments or methods. To ensure a quality service is offered. To ensure the instruments, processes and methods are reliable. Leads to accountability and responsibility for the trainer and assessor. In general, the validation is a quality assurance check to make sure that all your tools, your methods and your evidence that you gather is in check. Today we will do a validation on the assessment tools that we've used, and this includes the question paper, this includes the model answers, this includes the instructions for the students as well as for the trainer, the assessment plan and the unit of competence. Now the unit of competence that we took into consideration today is UEEN-EEH-113A, troubleshoot amplifiers in an electronic apparatus. Once we start analyzing this unit of competence, we find that it's got three elements. Element 1 predominantly looks at the preparation for troubleshoot. Element 2 talks about troubleshoot techniques, and element 3 talks about documentation. Now when we start looking at these three elements, we find that element 1 and 2 has certain areas that are similar. Element 2 and 3 has got areas that's similar. Element 1 and 3 has got areas that's similar. When we look at the element 1 and 2, we find that the OSH regulation and preparation has got similar questions, but from a different angle. When we look at element 2 and 3, they talk about troubleshoot techniques, but from a different angle. When they talk about element 1 and 3, they talk about documentation before and documentation during and after the process of gathering evidence. Now, the critical aspects of validation for us was the following. There was three things that basically stood out. One of them was the legal and ethical obligations in relation to OSH regulations. At all times, the learner and trainer must feel as though they are in a safe learning environment, both physically and mentally. Creating a safe learning environment has been discussed previously in DEL 301A. The learner's environment can be a wonderful experience for trainer and for learner. When delivering any form of training program or assessment, occupational health and safety and maintaining a safe learning environment is of paramount to ensuring that the experience is a positive experience. All care must be taken within the classroom environment. However, not all training will be conducted in a classroom environment. Sometimes the students will have to go to a workshop environment where they need to be properly trained to engage with the equipment. You will find that they need to wear the proper PPE, which is your personal protective equipment, including your hard hat, eye protection, ear protection, long sleeve shirts, trousers, and steel cap boots. The other critical aspect of the assessment and validation was the principle of assessment. We had to make sure that the evidence that we gathered, as well as the processes for assessment, was all linked with the principles of assessment. Now, the principle of assessment has got 4 criteria. One is it needs to be valid, it needs to be reliable, and it needs to be fair and flexible. When we talk about valid, this basically for us says that the assessment outcomes needs to be supported by the evidence that was gathered. And this is what we found, is that we got very good evidence that we gathered. Reliable. The assessment is consistent with and accurate regardless of the assessor that conducted the assessment. Sometimes the assessor, for that specific unit of competence, is not able to conduct his duties, and then another assessor needs to step in. We can categorically say that there is no change in the assessment outcome. Was it fair? Yes, I think it was fair. Every student had the opportunity to produce a product, as well as the evidence that they could actually produce. Now, some students, or most students, 95% of the students, they are working at companies where they could use their third-party reports, which were signed by their managers and supervisors as part of their evidence. So it's fairly fair. Flexibility. Yes, we are quite flexible for changes within the assessment tools, and we have actually, it is so flexible that we could adjust it for people with a disability. Now, when we come to the rules of evidence, once again we have 4 elements here. We've got also valid, authentic, current, and sufficient. And when we talk about valid, it basically refers back to the assessment tool and the training package. Was the training done and the assessment, did they align? Was it the same topic? Was it the same product that we were talking about? And yes, we were giving a lecture on audio technology, and the students were assessed on audio technology level 2. Authentic, yes, it was the students' own work. We can confirm this. All third-party reports had 2 signatures on, and also we were actually phoning them to make sure that there is no wrong information given to us. And I was in the class when the assessment was done. Current, the information given to the student and the information given to the assessors were current, because we liaise with the industry experts on a regular basis, so we can update our information as time goes by. And lastly, sufficient. The evidence must be enough to demonstrate learner capability. Yes, I can confirm this. No question was a yes and no answer question. It was to describe and to analyze fault finding techniques, and also how they would get to the solution of the fault. The other things that we also looked at was the benchmark. When we go to the Australian qualification framework and we look at what a level 2 student's performance criteria is, then we are on par with what they are recommending. This basically means that we are complying to the code of practice and the training package requirements. And the organization is also involved with this whole process, and we comply to the requirements as well. The documents that we will be generating after this session will be kept in the administration building. Now, it is very important to know that the old documentation, policies, procedures and processes is not kept in the same place as the new ones, and they are also easily managed by version control. So if the old version says 1.1, the new version will say 1.2. We would just like to thank the contributors to the outcomes of this validation process, and we appreciate their feedback, which was very objective. It was open to other ideas and views, and was very practical. We've discovered that we need to actually introduce a practical component to the course as a recommendation from the group. This basically means that the student will have the freedom to either do it in front of the trainer or the assessor, or he could do it online, load it up on YouTube, and then send it off to us. And the last part is about the recording of the evidence as well as the changes. Now, everything that we've discussed today has been recorded in the meeting. The feedback forms has been collated and the data has been analyzed. It provides us a clear direction and strategy to compare the assessments. It compared with earlier versions of assessment methods and instruments and see if they are both better or worse. It's no good we create a new document and it's actually a worse off product. So we need to double check these things on a regular basis. Created an action plan. So now we have to delegate somebody to actually go and do this type of work and dedicate it to the administration department to make the administrative changes. Once the administrative changes have been made, the trainers will be notified on where this information is available. They will be sent a link, so it's easily accessible, but obviously students' records are being kept confidential. Once these changes have been made, it then becomes a new policy and process, and there will be a meeting 5 days before it's actually implemented. to give everybody enough time to read through the documents and assess or ask any questions if there is any confusion. Thank you very much for everybody that participated in the validation. This is the end of the Part C TAEASS403B Demonstration 1. Thank you.